Good morning, everyone. At least it's morning here in Sweden. I know that we have a lot of viewers and also speakers from different time zones around the world. And welcome to our webinar on surrogacy motherhood. My name is Clara Berglund, and I am the Secretary General of the Swedish Women's Lobby. And we're an independent umbrella organization for the women's movement here in Sweden. And we're also a member of ICASM, the International Coalition for the Abolition of Surrogacy Motherhood. And for almost 10 years, we have worked together with the global women's movement to try to reveal the exploitation of women within the surrogacy industry and to push for a ban on all forms of this reproductive trade in women and children. We are organizing this event together with the Federation of Social Democratic Women in Sweden, S-Kvinnor, and together with the Center Party, the Women's Federation of the Center Party, Centerkvinnorna, and also with our member organization, the Swedish, the Medical Women's Association of Sweden. So a warm welcome to all of you from all of us. The layout of this seminar is as follows. So we're going to start with showing you a short clip from a documentary, and then we will get to listen to some comments from Maria Dmytriyeva, who is a Ukrainian women's rights advocate. And then I will do a brief interview with a renowned surrogacy researcher, Sheena Saravan. And then after that, in the last part of the seminar, we will switch to Swedish and we will talk to the political women's organizations, what Sweden can do to combat surrogacy motherhood in Sweden and internationally. And as you probably understood, we're going to focus on Ukraine today. And Ukraine is one of the fastest growing surrogacy markets in the world right now. The reproductive industry tends to move from country to country, settling down wherever there is a lot of vulnerable women with a weak legal protection. And right now, Ukraine is their favorite destination. The corona pandemic has put a spotlight on the horrible conditions for surrogacy mothers and children in Ukraine, and probably a lot of you have seen the pictures of babies in rows crying and shouting for human touch from inside the Ukrainian surrogacy clinics. And this has happened when the borders have been closed due to the coronavirus, so that the intended parents can't pick the children up. 2 weeks ago, more than 200 women's organizations sent a letter to the Ukrainian president calling for a ban on surrogacy. And we've also had an important voice, which is the Ukrainian Children Ombudsman, that has been talking about this surrogacy motherhood as a form of slavery and describing the horrors that surrogacy mothers face within this industry. But the situation in Ukraine was bad already before the pandemic hit. And to get a sense of some of the horrors that women and children face inside the surrogacy industry, we're going to watch a short clip from the documentary called Damaged Babies, Broken Hearts. It's produced for ABC by their foreign correspondent, Samantha Haley.
In Ukraine, the baby business is booming. It's the new go-to destination for commercial surrogacy.
Where's your smiles? Not yet, too young.
While it brings joy to some,
шансы ей не давали никто, в принципе.
There's heartache for others. We uncover an ugly trade.
I think these are cockroaches. They're all over the side.
And confront those responsible.
How many children that you oversee the birth of through your company are born with brain damage?
I've been reporting on international commercial surrogacy for over half a decade and revealed horrific cases of babies left behind in Thailand and India. Both countries have since banned commercial surrogacy for foreigners, but now a thriving trade has sprung up in Ukraine. Childless couples from around the world are travelling here because they're told it's safe and affordable. This is the new motherland.
When couples come to Kiev to engage in surrogacy, they'll get a sense of a bustling cosmopolitan city. But in reality, Ukraine is one of the poorest nations in Europe, with a third of the population living under the poverty line and tens of thousands of children in institutional care. Not to mention, this is a nation at war.
So that was just a short clip, and I do recommend that if you're interested, you can watch the entire film, and you can easily find it on YouTube. Now I would like to turn to Maria Dmytriyeva, that's with us from Ukraine. So you are a women's human rights advocate, and you are engaged in an NGO called the Democracy Development Center. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
I wanted to ask if you could start by describing the situation in the surrogacy industry in Ukraine, and if you recognize this picture from the movie.
I've seen this movie. I saw it last year, and I rewatched it yesterday. It is heartbreaking and very, very sad and shameful for us to become the country where people come and buy babies a la carte.
Can you say something about how big the surrogacy industry is in Ukraine? Is it noticeable for, in people's everyday lives?
There is not much known officially about this area, basically because there is very few legal regulation on it. According to the Association of Reproductive Medicine, there are 59 clinics all over the country, but the total number of eggs donated commercially and this pregnancies and the babies born as a result of operation of this industry is unknown, but is estimated in thousands every year. So a significant part of those babies are commissioned by foreign parents. Not the local parents commission, from what I've read, less than 1/4. So it is mostly foreign driven trade. Mm-hmm. There are people who have money. We have destitute women who have no other way to make this much money in this period of time. So they are easily targeted through social networks, through Viber groups, through Contact social networks, through Facebook. Their advertisement can be found in public transportation. There are no limitations on their ads, both for commercial egg donation and for surrogacy. And you can find them in suburban trains, which are used by those who are the poorest, those who don't have their own cars that use those means of transportation. And the forums for young mothers, and where they sell their children's things, clothing and footwear, so you can find advertisement for commercial surrogacy there as well.
Right. Can you tell us something about what happens with the mothers or the women when they enter into a surrogacy arrangement? For example, where they're staying during the surrogacy process?
It depends, based on investigative journalists' reports, it depends on how the process is organized. Sometimes it's the surrogacy clinic that organizes the entire process. Sometimes surrogacy clinics just offer medical services and everything else is managed by a surrogacy agency, which are not officially licensed to do so. Also, there's been reports that a significant number of such clinics are not registered officially as Ukrainian enterprises. They're registered in offshore, so they don't pay taxes, and that becomes makes it even harder to track their activities in Ukraine. So women can be asked to come for the procedure to Kiev or to other major cities where the clinics are located. They may be asked to stay in a rented apartment for the entire duration of pregnancy, or they can stay with their families and come to the clinic or to the agency for the last 2 months of pregnancies. Women are usually not told that these are high-risk pregnancies and high-risk births. And the reason why they're asked to come for the last 2 months is usually because surrogacy pregnancies have significantly higher risks of miscarriage and premature birth. So if the woman has more than one embryo and the commissioning parents don't want more than one child, these women are supposed to obey and have all the extra embryos aborted, or they can be asked to carry 2 or more embryos to term.
Right. Another question about the children. I know that in this movie there's a lot of focus on children with disabilities. Do you know anything about the children that are born for surrogacy that have disability? What happens to them?
As long as we don't have any official statistics on how many children are born at all, there is obviously no statistics how many of them are born with disabilities or defects or problems. I've heard from the person working in the anti-trafficking police department that up to 1/2 of children that end up in orphanages for newborns in Ukraine come from such surrogate pregnancies, because the commissioning parents didn't want to pick up the baby with defects or disabilities or problems. And their actual mothers, the ones that gave them birth, are not allowed to take these children with them, because under the Ukrainian law, it's the commissioning parents' baby.
Right, right. And also, could you tell us something about the political situation in Ukraine? So there's no legislation right now, it's completely uncontrolled, and you don't know anything about the numbers, but is there a political process looking into regulation, and what's the political discussion on surrogacy like?
Right now, we only have 2 documents that regulate surrogacy in Ukraine. One is the family the Code of Family Laws of Ukraine. It has a very small section, maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs, on reproductive, assisted reproductive technologies. And surrogacy is listed there as one of the ways of treatment of infertility. And it says basically what I already said, that the commissioning parents under the law are the parents of the baby, and the surrogate is supposed to give it up, even if they, it doesn't say this in the law, but the practice is if the parents don't take the baby, she cannot take the baby with her. The other document is the order by the Ministry of Healthcare, which outlines the application of assisted reproductive technologies. And it also doesn't offer much as to regulation procedure. It only, one of the major things is that you have to be a married couple of a woman and a man, and you have to provide a certificate that you cannot produce a baby using traditional means, so you are, as a couple, infertile. These are the prerequisites for the application of this procedure. There are some new reports that the parliament already has at least 2 draft laws to regulate the procedure, but I haven't seen them yet, and I cannot find them on the website of our parliament. So maybe they're just in the process of development. So we don't know what position they take.
Right. Also, given the situation for surrogacy mothers and for children in the Ukraine, do you have any message that you would like to say to Swedish citizens or other citizens around the world that are considering purchasing a surrogacy baby from Ukraine?
The only thing that I would ask is stop buying babies, stop commissioning babies. It is inhumane and it should not be legal. And if it is illegal in your country, don't try exploiting poor women in other countries. It is unethical.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you for all the work that you are doing and for standing up to the multi-billion-dollar industry that commercial surrogacy is. And please don't stop. Carry on the struggle. And now I would like to turn to India. This is almost like the Eurovision Song Contest, moving from different towns in the world. I would like to turn to Dr. Sheila Saravan, and you are an associate professor at the Center of Women's Studies in the University of Hyderabad. And you have been interviewing surrogate mothers for over 10 years in your research. And many of you might know that India used to be the biggest destination for commercial international surrogacy up until 2017, when at least international commercial surrogacy was closed down in India. So thank you, Sheila, for joining us. And perhaps if we could start off with you just saying a little bit about your research, what you're doing and what you're seeing.
So I started, I did my first small study on surrogacy. This was in 2009 when I was in the University of Heidelberg, where there was a project on medical tourism and people coming to India for knee transplantation and other kinds of things. And I put in a proposal on reproductive tourism, it was called. That's normal tourism. And that's when I did a study. But at that time, I interviewed only 13 women. Although I met several other surrogate mothers, I actually interviewed only 13, and I did a very intensive, a longitudinal study. I followed during this pregnancy and then after the pregnancy and so on. So I didn't have many cases. So I eventually, 10 years later, it was when UNDFR, the European Observatory for Non-Discrimination and Fundamental Rights in France, they asked me to do if we can do a follow-up study, and that's when I did an impact assessment study. I interviewed 45 surrogate mothers in Anand, Ahmedabad, and in the surrounding areas, in Nadiyad and so on. And it was an impact assessment study of the physical, psychological, and financial impact of surrogacy. So I met women who had done surrogacy. So they were all post-surrogacy. They had already done the surrogacy. And it was not during the surrogacy process. So this was my report. The report is also online. This UNDFR project report that I had done. Findings are all online. Yeah.
Thank you. And having seen what you've seen and heard when you've talked to the surrogate mothers, I was wondering what you think about the quote from the Ukrainian children's ombudsman. So he has been describing surrogacy motherhood as a form of slavery. Is that something that you would agree with?
Yeah, certainly not. It's not about me agreeing. The surrogate mothers themselves agreed, because one of the questions I asked them was, is this equivalent to slavery? And they all said yes. 100%, all the 45 women surrogate mothers said yes, because when they signed the contract, they cannot, from the point of the time when they signed the contract, they cannot question anything that happens to themselves or their body, even if they die, whatever happens. There is nobody takes responsibility for it. So the entire process, it's nothing but slavery. This is, they have told me, I'm not telling this. So, yeah.
The answer is yes.
Yes.
So something that I wanted to ask you about also was on abortion, because from what I've understood, usually the women give up the right to abortion when signing a surrogacy contract. And also there can be sometimes forced to have an abortion as well. For example, if there are too many fetuses, or if there is a special request for about, for example, which sex you want on the baby. Can you tell us something about the connection between abortion and surrogacy?
Yeah, they sign off entire rights over their body. So they do not have any rights over the body. They are given the rights to the medical fraternity, to the doctor. Now during the pregnancy, no, the transfer that is done, the embryoid transfer that is done, legally at that time in India, only 3 embryos were supposed to be transferred. But the doctor transfers 5 embryos, and invariably, almost 50% of the cases, they are more than 3. There are more than 2 cases, 2 embryos that actually develop into fetuses. And in that case, what they do is they do in utero selective abortion, and it's invariably a girl child that is aborted. So you can just take it for granted that it's usually a girl child. But there was one particular case. So usually they do not touch the baby if it is one baby or it is two babies. It is only when there is a third fetus that they do an in utero selective abortion. But I found one particular case wherein there were two babies. There was just a girl and a boy, and the girl was aborted. And surrogate mother was, usually the surrogate mothers are very much against this process. They are completely against this process. You can feel that they actually are very, very uncomfortable when they come to this point when one of the babies has to be aborted. And many times it is done without their knowledge. They come to know only later on. So there was one surrogate mother she had two babies, a boy and a girl, and the intended parents were forcing, they were kind of pressurizing that the girl child has to be aborted, and she resisted. And in this case, one of the cases, she couldn't resist, the abortion went ahead. But there was another surrogate mother who saw this happening, and when it happened to her, she resisted very strongly and she was able to stop that abortion. But it is, first of all, the entire process, they actually go through a lot of depression after this has happened. Oh, this happened, I had to abort this one child. So that they carry forward for a very long time, and they're not happy doing it at all. And second is the health problems. So it has this, the procedure itself is so risky. And there was one surrogate mother, they did a in utero selective abortion, and eventually she lost all the babies. And many cases, they lose all the babies and they do not get any money for it. But one particular surrogate mother, she lost all the babies, but it took some time for her. You know, it took 3 months or 2 months for her to lose those babies, and her health deteriorated like anything after that. You know? So this is all completely illegal. One stage is the abortion itself, but there's one selective selection that is taken even before, you know, right at the laboratories. You see there is a selection of embryos, and these are based on certain characteristics. So what kind of baby they want and what kind of baby they don't want.
It's about designing the baby that you wish for and feel that you are entitled to. And can you tell us about the medical and also the psychological consequences for surrogacy mothers, not just only in connection to abortion, but for all, in general, for surrogacy mothers? How are they affected?
Actually, when I went for my impact assessment study, I didn't realize that it had such an immense impact, that it had such a huge impact, physical impact. So firstly, all of them unanimously told me that they cannot work to the extent they used to work before. So their work capacity has reduced. So they have become very weak overall. So, and these are women who are, you know, employed in very labor-intensive kind of works. You know, they are working as agricultural laborers, or they're working as maid servants in people's houses, house help, and so on. For them, not being able to work was a huge impact on their lives. So their livelihood is reduced. But apart from this thing, there were very serious problems that I saw them, and they told me. One was a kidney failure, blood pressure, thyroid problems. There were some surrogate mothers who had cancer, and usually after the surrogacy is over, the medical clinic says we have nothing to do with this, and whatever problem you have is got to do with something else. It's nothing to do with surrogacy. So that's where they know they do not help them financially, they do not help them psychologically. So these women are kind of, many of them have had severe, you know, kind of health problems after surrogacy.
I also wanted to ask you about breastfeeding, because I know that you've said in another interview that I've seen that sometimes the surrogate mothers are expected to breastfeed the children, and I think that might also be the case in Ukraine now that the babies cannot be collected by the intended parents. So how are the surrogate mothers affected by having to breastfeed the children that they then have to give away?
Yeah. So it's very much linked with the psychological impact. So these, in many of these surrogate mothers in India were expected to breastfeed. Now, both ways, it's very traumatic, for them, because in one particular case, usually it is the intended parents who ask them. Whatever the intended parents want, that is what they have to do. So in India, some of the surrogate mothers have to stay back in the surrogate home. So they usually in the surrogate process in India, some of the clinics have these surrogate homes where they have to stay throughout the pregnancy. So it's like it's like this lockdown situation. So 10 women are in one house. They cannot move out. They have to follow rules. So what happens is some surrogate mothers are expected to breastfeed or provide breast milk. So those mothers continue staying in those houses where they are kind of restricted from movement and all, and they pump and give the breast milk. So even in that case, they are like very because some of these surrogate mothers want to see the baby. All they're doing is pumping milk and providing it to the baby. So they feel very frustrated that they're not being able to see the baby. Now the context behind this is many of these intended parents have to wait for their passports, who used to come from abroad. So in that time, they are making the surrogate mothers their nannies. So we have no way to go, so you become our nannies. So one particular surrogate mother in my case study, she became a nanny. That one of the twin was very not very healthy, so she became a nanny and she bonded with that child. So she went for a second surrogacy. I mean, it was a heart-wrenching story about how she finally separated. She became very much attached to that child. And in the second, she went again for surrogacy because she wanted to experience something better the next time. And when she went the second time, they did not allow her to see the baby because she had become attached to the baby in the first time through breastfeeding and whatever. So they they were recording her whole delivery, but after that they didn't show the baby to her at all. She was crying and she was saying, "I want to see the child," but they did not show her the child. And then the cameraman came back and showed her, "This is the baby." So it was a punishment because she bonded with the first child. She was punished by not even showing the face of the child the second time. So, but it's very much linked with what you're saying about the pictures in Ukraine, because in India now what has happened is most of the babies, they're not allowing the surrogate mothers to directly breastfeed. So they are behind this glass mirror. So you have this glass doors, and behind that all these nurseries are kept where all these babies are there. So surrogate mother can only stand there and see. But in my study, all the surrogate mothers said that they have bonded with the child, and they would like to know the whereabouts about what these children are doing. And it was very clear that if you ask them about the babies, some would start crying, some would just start looking up in the ceiling and not say anything. So this is the topic that they have not touched. They don't want to talk about, and suddenly I go and ask them this question. So the psychological impact is huge, but they do not know even what counseling is. So if I ask them, "Do you get counseling?" they say, "Oh, but I'm not mad." So because in India it's not very popular and common. Yeah.
I also wanted to ask you about the families of the surrogate mothers. How are they involved? The husbands and the families, are they involved in making the decision to enter a surrogacy arrangement? And how is the family affected by the woman going through this process?
In my study, I found many husbands were involved. It's largely a combination, but it's a combination of the doctors, the surrogate agent, and the husbands. So whoever, if the surrogate mother agrees, then no problem. She takes a decision and she says, "Okay, I want to do this." And mostly it is a first surrogacy that, they don't know what the process is. But then you have these agents and the medical clinics and the husband. For example, one particular case was, she was the lady was working as a sweeper, she was a cleaner in the clinic. And she didn't want to do it. So what they did is they went to her house, they brought her husband. They convinced him first. And then they convinced her. So this process, sometimes it takes, the clinic is involved, sometimes only the agent is involved, sometimes only family members are involved. So there is a combination of people who convince her into surrogacy, at least for the first time.
A question that we got earlier from one of the viewers was how much were the surrogacy mothers paid, and what would you say about the money involved? Like, how much money do they get, the surrogate mothers, and how is it like enough to improve the living conditions of those women that partake in surrogacy?
Yeah, so in India they were paid something like 300,000 euros. So that would come to about 300,000 rupees. So that would come to about 4,000 euros altogether. But most of these women are coming from very poor families. Like most means I say only 20% or 25% are from slightly well off. Well off in the sense I would say they have some land, they have some house, or most of these women are from families where they do not own land, they do not own a house, and they probably don't have a steady income coming in. So in such families, what happens is suddenly when they get this 3,000 or 4,000 euros coming in, the first lot of money is spent quite rapidly. Or they buy houses that is much bigger than what they can afford. So they get into loan situations. And many of my surrogate mothers actually slipped into deeper poverty because they did surrogacy. Or they had to do a second surrogacy to overcome the loan of the first surrogacy. So it is in very poor families who had done surrogacy, they have to do at least 2 surrogacies. Usually it is at least 3 surrogacies. It's only then that they come out of poverty. Then they are, so it has a huge impact, and by the time it has a huge impact on their health. So they have trials. Every surrogacy means multiple trials, and they have to do three surrogacies for them to come out of poverty. So it's not like as you read in newspapers, you know, they get this 3,000 euros, so their life is made. And usually they calculate it with how many years the surrogate mother would have earned, you know, how many months or years she would have earned to get this 3,000, 4,000 euros. But it's not as simple as that in the reality, because the money gets spent quite easily, and usually they then have to do second surrogacy if they have to come out of poverty, but many of them don't do it. The fact that many of them don't do it, 70% of the surrogate mothers I met don't repeat surrogacy.
Right. Another question that we got is it sometimes that the husbands actually force the surrogate mothers to go through with it? And also about the second and the third time, the ones that go through it several times, is that a decision that comes really sometimes from the husband, the man of the household?
Yeah, it's a very, again I said, it's a very complex and you know, many people involved. So it is, so once she comes back from surrogacy from a very poor family, the money is spent. So she's there for a year, and by the time 1 year finishes, then she's slowly coerced. It's not a force word, but it's a very slow kind of a process in which she's told very nicely, you know, can you go again? And then she sees that her respect for the family has gone up. The mother-in-laws, the other family members, they look at her as a martyr, you know, that she's done something really great for this family. Her respect has gone up and so on. And then she goes for a second surrogacy. But despite that, many of the surrogate mothers did not go for the second surrogacy. So 75% of they realized that it was not that simple, and it is not doing much good to them and to their body and their psychology. So many of them don't go for the second surrogacy.
Can you say something about the other children in the family that the surrogacy, that the mother had?
That's another very heart-wrenching thing that I experienced in the surrogacy, in the impact assessment study, because they know that their mother is going through a very hard time. They see her crying all the time, every other day, thinking about this child. It has a huge impact on the other children. And some of these other kids are actually, the surrogate mother's child is shown. They come and see, this is your sister, this is your brother, and then they take the child away. So one of my surrogate mother's child actually was asking her that why did you give that other baby away? So it was only her child was only 5 or 6 years old, and he saw the mother was pregnant. He also saw that she has given the baby away. So he was really asking her again and again, why did you give that baby away? Why did you give my brother or sister away? So it was, then there were other cases where the women had actually grown up. The children had actually grown up, and they were actually arguing with me that my mother is the mother of the children. How dare they take the child away? So there's one of the girl of the surrogate mother who's doing her engineering now. She's quite an teenage, and she was telling me, she was arguing with me, why do these people come and do surrogacy here? I mean, why they harassed my mother? Look at her in what, physically and psychologically she's gone, and actually those children are hers. Genetically, they are linked with her too because she has carried the babies. So these are the questions I get from, different contexts and different households that I went to. The children were reacting very differently, and they all knew, they had all seen these babies. So they were involved in the surrogacy at some point or the other.
So something that's evident when listening to you is that you have so many stories about women and children that have been hurt throughout the surrogacy industry. And I know that you've even come across cases where women have died during the surrogacy process. How are you treated by the surrogacy industry? Like, has there been, for example, surrogacy clinics that have tried to silence you?
No, not really silence, but again, it's a very subtle thing. When I went first in 2009, when I went, they were very happy that I come, because I came from Germany and they thought they'll get some marketing popularity and all. They were very happy. But when they saw me, that I'm an Indian and I'm wearing very Indian clothes, and they were worried. So there was always this tension between me and the clinic right from the beginning, that what is she going to find out? Because they know there's a lot of unethical things happening over there. So there were always this worry factor among them, always the tension. But when I came for the second time, when I came 10 years later, it's not only me, even the surrogate mothers were very scared to take me to other surrogate mothers or to be seen with me. And they were telling me, please go away, madam, because anything can happen. So it's not a safe thing for you to do this study here. So I finished my study quite soon. It was quite a rapid thing.
So you actually felt freedom by then.
So I had to go through this. Yes, very much. Not only me, the surrogate mothers who have felt very.
Right. I think that we had a bit of a maybe internet failure there. Are you still with us, Sheila? Hello? While you're gone, I'll see if you come back, and I will look into some of the questions that we've gotten from the audience. I've asked some of them already. A question that we've got, for example, is how common it is with vaginal surrogacy versus cesarean, vaginal birth versus cesarean birth. So that's a question that we could also look into. And we had the clarification from Maria in Ukraine that in Ukraine women has to have at least one child already in order to apply to take part in surrogacy. Another question is that, is there a lot of racism involved in the surrogacy industry? And I know that this is something that we have been talking a lot about in the Swedish women's lobby, that surrogacy is the perfect intersectional issue with racism, colonialism, and sexism all playing together, so that you could privilege people in richer parts of the world can use the bodies of colored and poor women in other countries to bear children for them. I think that we have lost Maria, but we were still coming to an end of that interview. So I think that with that, I would like to end this first English part of the seminar. And I would like to thank all of you for listening, and I want to thank Maria and Sheila for taking part and for their important work. And I think it's especially important to listen to voices like Sheila that has dedicated all of her research into surrogate mothers and to their perspectives, because what we're constantly seeing in this when working against surrogacy, it's the intended parents and the surrogacy clinics all the time are given space to portray this issue. So we want to thank Sheila for doing that, for listening to the women and for bringing her voices into this room. And with that, I'm going to turn to Swedish and turn to S-kvinnor and Centerkvinnorna. Also, I want to say you can, as I said earlier, find the movie that we talked about on YouTube, and you can also look into ICASM, the International Coalition for the Abolition of Surrogacy, if you're interested in this issue. But with that, I'm going to turn to Swedish, and we're going to talk about what Sweden can do to ban surrogacy in Sweden and also globally. So thank you to all of our international viewers for taking part. Och så går vi över till svenska och så får man äntligen slappna av lite grann. Och så kan jag presentera på riktigt då Carina Olsson som är ordförande för S-kvinnor och Helena Wilhelmsson som är vice ordförande för Centerkvinnorna. Och jag hoppas att ni är med oss nu båda två. Stämmer det?
Ja.
Perfekt. Jag tänkte att vi kan börja med, eller först också tack till att ni är med oss och ordnar det här samtalet och att ni är med oss i den här kampen som känns så viktig. Jag tänkte vi kan börja med dig, Carina. Vad är dina reflektioner efter att ha kollat på den här filmen och lyssnat på Maria och Sheila?
Ja, det är ju otroligt starka skildringar. Och då känner jag också då att det är oerhört viktigt de ställningstaganden som vi har tagit sedan tidigare S-kvinnor. Och i vårt program så under rubriken exploatering av kvinnokroppen så har vi avsnittet om surrogatmödraskap. Och då känner jag ännu större och starkare bekräftelse utav att det är där det hör hemma. Men det är också så att vi just nu sitter och arbetar om vårt program och då behöver vi ha med ännu starkare skrivningar för att när man nämner här och även om jag har hört en del av de här berättelserna tidigare så när man får det liksom till sig så när man pratar om slaveri, när man pratar om den här starka människohandel, barnhandel, att man också selekterar barnen, väljer ut vilket utav embryona man ska ha kvar. Och vi har också sett de här starka bilderna nu under covid-19 när inte den här barnhandeln då fungerar längre. Så ser man att de här stora salarna med barn som ligger och väntar på att få en ytterligare föräldrar. Det här är ju inte okej och det kan ju inte någon tycka egentligen när man tar till sig det här. Och det är ju också så att vi då också måste ha både modet och ta till oss berättelserna och också tillsammans både i Sverige men också internationellt driva de här frågorna. Så att jag sitter ju också i Europarådets parlamentariska församling och jag tänker återigen lyfta de här frågorna och har gjort det tidigare också då. Och Ukraina som är ett europeiskt land, det är ju inte ett land som är demokratiskt, definitivt inte jämställt. Och man har ju också så här att man inte får ha sexualkunskap och så vidare. Så att det står ju bjärt kontrast med det här som man också har den här barnhandeln. Så kvinnokampen går vidare.
Tack Carina. Helena Wilhelmsson från Centerkvinnorna, vad tänker du efter att ha lyssnat på det här samtalet?
Ja, alltså det är ju förfärliga berättelser och jag kan inte låta bli att återigen så konstaterar man ju att kvinnor utsätts, kvinnor blir handelsvaror. Jag likställer det med prostitution, med människohandel. Kvinnor i utsatta positioner uppmuntras, nyttjas, utnyttjas till detta. Och det som är så anmärkningsvärt i sammanhanget är ju att alltså man gör ju operationer med kvinnors kroppar. Och man hade ju hoppats att man år 2020 har kommit ifrån det här med att man faktiskt mixtrar och handlar med människors kroppar. Vi håller inte på med slaveri, vi håller inte på med organhandel, vi håller inte på med köp. Men vi håller inte på med att handla med kvinnors kroppar. Men verkligheten visar ju återigen gång på gång att nej, vi behöver fortsätta den här kampen och vi behöver med alla medel se till, både nationellt och internationellt, att det här får ett stopp. Och det är ju, jag tänker också att vi har en stor uppgift i, kanske återkommer till det här, men i både EU och FN att diskutera det här, att sätta det här på dagordningen och att uppmuntra och ge stöd till länder som faktiskt behöver stöd för att åstadkomma en schysst lagstiftning kring det här. För att det är ju, och granska de här företagen. Alltså hur kan de här företagen kunna operera i Sverige? Hur kan de tillåtas att fortsätta, både i Sverige men framförallt i många andra länder? Vi hörde ju i Ukraina, företag som inte ens är registrerade i Ukraina, som inte betalar skatt. Här krävs det ju verkligen en internationell samverkan för att komma åt det här.
Och för de som inte vet så finns det i alla fall, vi känner till minst 2 surrogatförmedlingar som är etablerade här i Stockholm och som förmedlar surrogatavtal, bland annat till Ukraina, och som på senare tid har haft rabatt på att köpa surrogatbarn därifrån. En sak som jag tänkte fråga dig om, Helena, är liksom, varför har vi inte gjort någonting åt det här? Är det så att den här utvecklingen har gått under radarn och lite väl fort? Är det så att politiken inte har hängt med? Eller hur har vi kunnat hamna där? För att nu är det ändå ett ganska så stort antal barn som kommer genom surrogatmoderskap till Sverige varje år.
Ja, och först vill jag säga att vi hanterar ju frågor som är väldigt respekt. Vi måste behandla dem med respekt. Alltså barnlöshet är ju en väldigt vanligt förekommande situation och den måste vi bemöta med djup respekt, och det här är djupt etiska frågor. Och man återkommer ju till den frågan i hela den här hanteringen. Är en mänsklig rättighet att få barn, och i förlängningen är det en rättighet att någon ska bära ens eller ditt eller någon annans barn. Det är därför vi har den här situationen. Så vi måste ju angripa den här frågan på så många sätt. Och vi har kanske angripit det på något sätt i Sverige genom att frågan om fertilitet har ju ändå utvecklats. Men det vi inte har gjort är ju samtidigt det som utredningen sa 2016, att vi ska motverka kommersiella surrogatarrangemang utomlands. Och det är det vi ser nu. Där har vi ju faktiskt inte gjort någonting. Regeringen har inte gjort någonting där, trots att utredningen sa som den sa, att det ska motverkas. Så det är klart att verkligheten har sprungit ifatt oss. Men eftersom vi har, vad som är viktigt är att angripa det här från 2 håll, eftersom vi har det stora antalet vi har. Det är ju, surrogatarrangemang är ju typ större än adoptioner. Och då måste man ju verkligen göra det här på rätt sätt. Och vi kanske kommer tillbaka till det också, men här måste ju regeringen gasa för att, som jag sa förut, se till att det här som vi har sett idag, det måste ju upphöra. Och då måste man göra det på olika sätt. Man måste granska företagen, man måste framförallt ha ett förhållningssätt till myndigheter. Det kommer vi ju in på också, men det är ju otroligt respektlöst av regeringen att lämna de här frågorna till ambassader, till myndigheter som inte vet hur de ska hantera. Därför att tredje part blir ju drabbad, det vill säga barnet. Det är helt oacceptabelt.
Då, för de som inte vet, så som det går till idag är ju då till exempel i Ukraina och Georgien eller vart man nu är, så är det ju ambassaderna som hanterar den här frågan. Och i Ukraina så är det till exempel då att surrogatmamman måste då besöka den svenska ambassaden för att signera avtal och visa att hon har gjort det, och hon måste avsäga sig kontakten till barnet och det avtalet, och det sker liksom i koppling till Sveriges ambassad. Vad tycker ni, vi kan börja med Carina, vad tycker du att svenska myndigheter borde göra, och vad borde riksdagen och regeringens instruktion till svenska utlandsmyndigheter vara när det gäller surrogatmödraskap?
Ja, som jag sa också då, att jag har lyft frågan i Europarådet, och där var det också på gång att det var flera länder som ville tillåta i en högre grad då, men sen så stannade det vid ändå att varje land skulle ta ta ett beslut om man skulle tillåta, och då var det både kommersiellt och altruistiskt. Så att det var ju bra att det stoppade där. Men vi vet ju också att i Sveriges riksdag är det ju flera partier som är drivande att det till och med ska tillåtas i Sverige. Så att vi behöver ju diskutera frågan, och också som ni gör i kvinnolobbyn enträget lyfter den här frågan. Och jag tror också att en del vill inte ta till sig kunskapen för att man vill också gå ut med ett annat budskap. Och jag vet ju och känner också flera som har haft väldigt svårt att för att det är barnlöshet och man önskar sig ett barn mer än allt annat. Men det är ju också, då är ju inte allt tillåtet för det, att vi kan tillåta allting, och det är väl det som man också måste se det, att vi kan ju inte tillåta att kvinnor lever i slaveri och slaveriliknande förhållanden i andra länder för att vi ska tillgodose att svenska par eller ensamstående ska bli föräldrar. Och det är väl det som man måste se, och då tror jag man måste lyfta frågan i alla sammanhang, både internationellt och nationellt. Och vi har ju nu också skrivit brev också naturligtvis till Ukraina, men också till våra ministrar här i Sverige också då. Och jag kommer ju fortsätta att lyfta frågan också då, för att vi också ska få den på bordet på ett annat sätt. Men det är klart att då behöver det jobbas både på när det handlar från UD och också då i Sverige, för att det är ju ändå i Sverige vi också skapar opinion för att vi ska också kunna göra något internationellt, och då vore det ju bra om vi fick med oss alla partier också då, eller i alla fall flera partier, så att vi kunde trycka på. Och mitt eget parti, Socialdemokraterna, vi har ju tagit ställning mot surrogatmödraskap, men vi behöver ju naturligtvis göra mer när vi ser hur det ser ut då. Och också de här företagen som det är, som också annonserar och har möten i Sverige och så, att vi behöver motverka det, och det kommer jag att ta upp med berörda ministrar då, för antagligen är det flera stycken jag behöver ta upp det med, för att det faller nog inom flera olika områden. Så det är det vi kan göra, och det är ju ofta det vi gör, att vi jobbar både internt och externt samtidigt då, som kvinnoförbund.
Och jag kan säga, vi kan reda ut också, vi fick en fråga i chatten här, vilka partier som är för surrogatmödraskap. Men då handlar det alltså om att införa altruistiskt surrogatmödraskap i Sverige, och från vår sida så är vi emot alla former av surrogatmödraskap. Men då är det då Centerpartiet, Liberalerna och Moderaterna som är för. Men precis. Och sen så kan man säga då att Centerkvinnorna, kvinnoförbundet är emot, men partiet är för. Så det är de partierna som är för, eller hur? Vi säger rätt då, Karina?
Ja, så har jag uppfattat det också.
Perfekt, då har vi svarat på det. Ni ska få en sista avslutande kort mening här, och om ni vill säga då det absolut viktigaste, vad är det Sverige ska göra på europeisk och internationell nivå för att bekämpa den här reproduktiva handeln med kvinnor och barn? Du, vi börjar med dig, Karina.
Det är att lyfta upp frågan och också hitta möjligheter, eller visa möjligheterna för att man ska kunna stoppa det här. Och då kan man ju gå både genom jämställdhetsfråga, men man kan också gå barnperspektiv. Så det finns ju också många människohandel, slaveri, så att vi kan ta många olika vinklar. Och det är det som jag tror att vi måste göra. Men vi också måste visa också vad det egentligen handlar om. Och tvinga människor och politiker att faktiskt ta ställning. Vem man ska skydda och ge stöd till. Och det tycker jag är ganska självklart nu när vi hört de här berättelserna.
Tack Karina. Helena Willelsson, vad tycker du att Sverige ska göra?
Vi som politiska partier måste ta ansvar, diskutera frågan, faktiskt tvinga regeringen och riksdagen att komma till ett beslut. Vi måste driva den här frågan på 2 fronter eller på flera fronter. Dels faktiskt diskutera hur vi ska stoppa, förhindra eller förbjuda internationella surrogatarrangemang så som vi har sett, eftersom det blir avarter så som vi har sett idag. Parallellt till det måste vi ju naturligtvis också ta ställning till frågan om surrogatarrangemang i Sverige. med den respektfullhet som jag nämner. Det grundar sig i barnlöshet. Jag tycker att regeringen och riksdagen måste skapa ett förhållningssätt omgående gentemot myndigheter så att vi diskuterar den här frågan så att föräldrar faktiskt får möjlighet att få reda på att så här kan det vara. Och det medverkar vi till. Vi måste granska företag, man kanske ska ha en granskningskommission, det är ju intressant, det är ju populärt i dessa tider. För att faktiskt komma till ett beslut så småningom. Och som jag sa förut så måste vi också lyfta den här frågan via våra parlamentariker i EU, vi måste driva frågan i FN. För det här måste ju till ett gemensamt internationellt synsätt, annars kommer vi aldrig åt det här. Handel med kvinnors kroppar ska vi lämna. Vi har gjort det i Sverige, vi kan inte medverka till det utomlands. Hon sa ju det i Ukraina, om det inte är tillåtet i Sverige så ska det inte vara tillåtet utomlands för svenska medborgare.
Tack. Det blir perfekta slutord. Alla kvinnors rättigheter oavsett vart i världen de än bor är lika mycket värda och alla kvinnor förtjänar att inte utsättas för den här handeln. Jag vill tacka er, Centerkvinnorna och S-kvinnor för att ni kunde vara med och vara avsändare för det här samtalet och tack till alla er som har lyssnat och vi kommer fortsätta jobba vidare med den här frågan. Det finns ett nätverk som vi sammankallar som heter Feministiskt nej till surrogatmoderskap och dit kan organisationer ansluta sig och personer kan också anmäla sig och få mer information om vad som händer i det här arbetet. Så tack till alla er för att ni var med och så önskar jag alla en trevlig fortsättning på den här dagen.